Okay, welcome everyone who's joining us here and everyone who's listening to this after. My name is Shanann and I'm here with Marika, and we are super thrilled to do this webinar. I'm extremely excited to do this weekend retreat that we're doing next weekend on Remembrance Day weekend, November 10th and 11th. And today we're just going to chat. We had a chat a couple weeks ago, which went really well. I enjoyed it very much. And so we're going to do this again and kind of get people more of an idea of what the weekend will bring and give them a taster of what to expect. And we'll see where the conversation goes. We have no agenda, we have no plans, and we have nothing really, no direction to where this will go, except that we know we're going to talk about how the mind works and what the implications of that is in our lives. So before I get into it, I do want to give a little bit of an introduction, and I'm going to be looking down. So if you see me looking down, it's at my notes here. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Shanann, like I said earlier. Oh, we have somebody else joining us. Nina.
Welcome, Nina.
If you can hear us, welcome, Nina.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, my camera's not working. Hope that's okay.
That's totally fine, totally fine. I'm just going to mute you as we go into this, and feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. And after we're done our chat, we'll definitely open up to everyone who has questions and comments and insights as well. Cool?
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. So like I was saying, those of you that don't know me, my name is Shanann Charania, and I've been working as a coach for about 4.5 years now. And I came into this understanding of the principles around 2015, 2016, and it really shook things up for me. Like it helped me understand myself on a deeper level, on a level that was beyond my intellect and my personality, and kind of just helped me put things into perspective and gave me a lot more clarity and freedom to play with in my life. And I started taking that to my clients and started seeing shifts in their lives, which was really unimaginable, unexplainable, and completely unpredictable of what I could bring to the table by myself. So I started to get really intrigued, and I got more and more involved with it, and now I'm completely immersed in it. And I'm starting to see that as I become more immersed in it, there's so much I don't know, and there's so much more to explore, and it's really an infinite space to look into. So I love it for that reason. And I want to introduce Marika here. So Marika Mayer I'm going to give a real professional bio here. Marika Mayer has shared in her role as a parent, grandparent, educator, and facilitator for over 30 years in the three principles understanding of how we create our experience professionally and personally. In the 1970s, she was introduced to and impacted by the work of Sydney Banks, and to this day is seeing the growing evidence that a simple shift in understanding can bring about in personal and professional lives to one of more ease and success. The application of this understanding is equally relevant to people of all ages and walks of life, recognizing the source of our experience in order to guide our direction. She has worked with diverse populations in roles that included preschool educator, youth worker, and career advisor. And as much as she enjoys sharing her learning, she appreciates being a continuing student of life. So welcome, Marika, and thank you for doing this retreat with me.
Oh, thank you, Shanann. It is my absolute pleasure. You know, every time we get together, I learn, because our conversations just spark new ideas, and it has me look deeper. So our continuing education continues. So I thank you for inviting me and for the opportunity. It's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. It's completely my privilege. I learn so much from you every time I'm with you as well.
Thank
you. So I thought I would kick this conversation off with a question that we had somebody send in. Past client of mine who wishes to remain anonymous had a question for us that our last chat that we did, we got into a conversation around, our thinking, our emotions, and insecure and anxious feelings is somewhere what we talked about. I haven't viewed the whole thing again, but her question really is that when we talk about having insecure and anxious thinking, we were talking about the best thing to do when we're experiencing that is do nothing, right? And so she was a little bit perplexed, like, what do you mean by do nothing? Because it's not a comfortable feeling. I don't want to be in it and I want to get out of it. So if I do nothing, it seems like I'll stay in it.
Mm.
And so I said, yeah, we'll address that because that's kind of a common question I get too. And I have my own thoughts around it, but I'd love to hear what you have to say around that.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, we're all very human and all experience insecurity or anxiety from time to time, depending on life situations and where our level of consciousness is at the moment. Sometimes we understand more deeply how life works, and sometimes less so. That's the ebb and flow of life, right? When I understand that how I'm seeing the world at the moment is a temporary thing, and it's coming from my level of understanding or level of consciousness in the moment, if I'm not seeing too well, if I'm feeling uncomfortable or anxious, that feeling is my clue that it's probably not best to act on it from that point of view. I might just get myself deeper into whatever anxiety or issues I'm involved in. For me, I understand if I settle down and don't engage that type of thinking any further and I leave it alone, I know that from within, I'll come back to that place of peace if I don't choose to dance with that tiger, whatever it happens to look like. If I let it go, I know the equilibrium will come back to me, but it's just not always so apparent when you're caught up. But experience going in and out of it, right? Facing life's challenges that sometimes do give me those feelings. I know I don't want to live there. And from my life experience, I've learned to let it go. It's just a thought. And when I know feeling insecure or feeling anxious is just a thought, and thoughts come and go, it's up to me whether I act on them and make them real and make them solid, or if I just step back and observe it as a thought in the moment that's passing through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
I'm thinking of times when I was a child, I had plenty of insecure thinking. I was an immigrant. When I came to school, I looked different from everybody else. I was bigger than all the other kids in my class. I wore funny European clothes. I couldn't speak the language. I felt very awkward, and more than anything, I wanted to be included and involved and just be normal like everybody else. I had a lot of insecure feelings about that I carried with me for a long time. Even after I lost my accent, I just learned to accept that as a way of thinking, hanging on to thoughts that made me feel poorly. I didn't know at the time it was a thought, but I did notice at the time there were periods or occasions when that thought would leave me and I'd have a great time. And I remember one time in particular when I was a teenager, there was this group of cool kids in the high school, and after school they would go to this coffee shop and hang out. And I desperately wanted to be part of that group because I really admired them, but I was really cool also at the same time. And I just went to the coffee shop one day, like I didn't engage in my insecure thinking, and I walked past the booth where they're all sitting, and I just said hi. And my God, it took all the courage I had to do that. You know, my face turned 50 shades of red. You know, that was my habit from my insecure thinking, is blushing extremely. And they just said, "Oh, hi, why don't you join us?" And it, you know, I was so shocked and surprised. But it was just that moment where I let go of the usual thinking and let something new come in, that it changed in a little way. But to me, it was huge in the moment. That was just a little example of letting go of your thinking. And then later on, after I met Mr. Banks, and he shared about how understanding how our thinking works can take you in such different directions. So when insecure thinking comes up, knowing not to engage it, but just observing it as a passing thought. And if I don't give it fuel, if I don't engage it, it will settle down. It always does. So to me, that was really, really helpful in my relationships, in my work. You know, you look for the best possible space, feeling to share with another human being. And if I'm not feeling it in the moment, I remember once Sid said to me, when you're not feeling great and you're out living in the world, be graceful. And when you are feeling good, just be grateful. And I love that. It's just kind of stuck with me, you know? So, of course, being human, I go in and out of it like everybody else, you know, but I observe it and I choose whenever possible, when I'm aware, not to engage the stuff that gives me more trouble. So,
Yeah.
Does that answer your question a little bit?
I think it's beautifully explained.
How do you see it?
Everything. I related to everything you said except for the blushing part. You know, I don't turn red, so I was saved as a kid, not turning red. But yeah, I think everything you said makes sense to me, and I found that to be the most helpful thing that I discovered too, was that the emotional, insecure, and anxious thinking that I experience is coming from my thinking, and it's not coming from outside of me. And that was a huge shift for me, because before understanding that, it was about, oh, I'm insecure because of this happening, or I'm anxious because of that person. And so my world would get smaller because I would avoid that place, or I would avoid that person. So I would become less and less myself, really. And after seeing that, yeah, emotions are a part of thought, and they're actually only reflecting my thinking. They're not reflecting anything outside of me. It only made sense to leave them alone, right? Because before my understanding, what made sense to me was, if it's looking like it's coming from somebody else or some place, then it only makes sense to try and change or avoid. Right? Because that's what it looks like. So it makes sense to avoid that place because it makes me insecure. It makes sense to not talk to that person so much because they make me anxious. Versus, oh, it's coming from my thinking. I don't need to change anything outside of me. I don't need to avoid anything. So my world can stay in expansion. And if it is coming from my thinking, then why do I need to change something that's not even real? Because thinking is passing and transient. And so the do nothing became the new paradigm, I guess, in it makes sense now to do nothing about thinking because my thinking is not real. And my feelings are very real, but they're coming from the illusory thoughts. So my experience was that if I left it alone, it left me faster.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to make it out to my behavior level. It didn't have to make it to my physical reality. And my dysfunctional behavior doesn't have to be dysfunctional. It can be functional, right? And it was only dysfunctional because I thought it was reflecting the outside. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it. And I can see why she asked the question, because when we are stuck in it, right? When I'm stuck in insecure thinking, it can be very uncomfortable, and it can be uh, very much about, oh my God, I don't want to be in this space. I need to change something. And do nothing does not sound like a good idea right now, because I want to do something to get out of it. So I can totally understand where she's coming from.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I've learned that doing something about it actually perpetuates it even more and has it stick around even more, because to do something about thinking, you would have to add more thinking to it. So it's not going anywhere when you do that. And it
Mhm.
just compounds it.
Right. I love that. Yeah, I would say that too. And just simply noticing that it's just thinking. So the fact
Yeah.
that thinking is happening, but not thinking about the content of whatever it is that's upsetting us, but just noticing it's just thought somehow helps me to step back and observe the little, it's almost like a diorama, it's like you see the little scene in front of you, but you're not quite in it anymore, not the same engaged, upsetting way. When you just have that clue that it's just simply a thought, and that our natural well-being, our natural energy, life force will, that it's in us, it's part of us, and it will restore us when we let go of that. It's always waiting to come forth and to guide us if we calm ourselves down. So if
Mhm.
we notice something, and just be open, and just wait. Patience is a big part of the learning as well, because sometimes I don't get, I would like to know now. I don't want to know later. I want to, have it now. But that's life's lessons, right? Is like just learning to still yourself. And, I may go for a walk, or I may pick up the phone and call a friend and talk about something different. Or I may go have a shower. I may, it doesn't matter what you do, but it's not in the doing. It's just in the knowing
Hmm.
that it will come back to you, and just going easy on ourselves, because I know I've been so hard on myself so much of my life. And then when I realized that it's okay, everything I need is inside me. And if I quieten down, it will guide me, just waiting for that positive feeling. And knowing it's there, I nurture it. So I look for opportunity in my life to quiet myself down when I've been too busy or too engaged or too much going on. It's like I just get still, and then I get inspiration of what I need to do next. Um,
Right.
it's doing less thinking and just noticing it when it happens. And when you get that good feeling, that positive, loving feeling about a direction, well, then that's your clue, right? Um, Feelings for me is really a clue of where I need to go next, right? And if I'm feeling the anxious, worried thinking, that's my warning that perhaps better not act. Just wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you said, looking for that feeling that will guide you, and then you'll get inspired again. And again, this was a game changer for me as well, because the dialogue out there, at least what I see out in the world, whether it's a psychology world or the self-help world, it's so much around, here's how you can feel better, and here's what to do when you're feeling down, and add some positive thinking and try and get out of it, and so on, right? And I was in that world a lot because obviously I wanted to feel good, right? Who wants to feel bad?
Mm.
And what was really fascinating to me about this understanding was that it was about understanding feeling. It wasn't about solving it. Right? And everywhere else that I looked, it was about solving the feeling. Oh, you're feeling bad? Do this. And it didn't really work for me because it was misleading. It might have been effective, but it was never sustainable, right? It always had to be done over and over again. And also, the biggest part for me was that it completely implied that I was scared of my feelings, which was true, because why would you want to get rid of your feelings unless you're really scared of what they're going to do to you, right? And what this understanding showed me, and encompassing all of it, was that how feelings work, where they come from, and when I started to see that they're a byproduct of my thought, it kind of pulled back the curtain and showed me that here's how it works. Why do you need to do anything about it? And one of the interesting insights I had was, you didn't invent feelings, so why do you think you can change them? And I kind of, you get those slap in the forehead kind of insights to go, yeah, it's so true. It is transient. It does seem to leave when I don't engage with it. So why am I trying to change it so much? And, that's what I love about this understanding, was that when it started to show me that feelings are not something you need to worry about or put on a pedestal or solve. They're not a problem. They're just feelings. It helped me engage with life more. It helped me engage with people more in a deeper way. And it helped me kind of participate in all of my experiences, whether they're negative or positive, like you said earlier, in a graceful way. I love when you said that, be graceful when you're down and grateful when you're up. So yeah, I wanted to bring that in because I think that's a real common dialogue. At least, like I said, the world that I see is so much around changing your feelings. And, I think a lot of us, in at least a better part of my life, haven't engaged with life so much because I was so busy trying to engage with my feelings and thoughts.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so common. Like, I mean, we all know that experience because we're all human, right? I love, how you were describing it, just this understanding, because it points us to our true nature, who we really are. And when we're not caught up in all that stuff around us, and you realize that we're born with everything we need. That's the cool thing. There's nothing to get because it's already in us. So knowing it's already in us, and how just to let things go and to recognize how it all works together, that understanding of our true nature and how we experience life, is what brings us the calm, brings us the relief, brings us peace when you're caught up in something, because life happens. I mean, I've had, for myself, I've had a real lot on my plate the last couple of months, where I'm thinking, oh, really, this too? With work and other things going on. And I just had to keep going back to not dealing in my head with all the issues, and just letting it go, and finding that quiet inside. And every time, I'd calm down, it would give me the answers of what I needed to do next. Whether it was something at work, like when I had the summer off, and when I came back in the fall, they'd switched all the computers on us into a new system, and all our files were gone. And initially I had a bit of thinking about that, like, how am I, but I knew, we'd figure it out. We get it, but initially, And I had a lot of deadlines on my plate that I was supposed to use this new equipment to accomplish all this work. So I could have really gotten into it. And initially it's like, I'm human. I'm thinking, what? And then it's like, okay, like find some peace with it. And then you know how to navigate best, what steps to take first, where to look first, when you know not to get caught up in the emotion. It was just some thoughts, a bundle of thoughts I had. And how do I deal with it? And my answer was, you don't, right? You let it go. You find your peace in the moment, in my office chair. Ideally I could have gone for a walk, but I had kids knocking on my door and lots going on. So, but even in the moment, even in the middle of a conversation, when I feel that the challenge, whatever it may be in my life showing up, if I remember it's just my thinking and action, and just to find peace with that, then I can motor on and have a better way to work something out that's mutually beneficial for everybody. Instead of being reactive, it's just noticing the thinking again. Because you're right, there really is nothing to do. But the fact of noticing brings us back to our peace. That, oh yes, there goes the parade again, and I'm just watching. And I'm in my safe place, and I'll know what to do next. It'll come to me. And we all have that. And I didn't know that so well before. I was pretty much caught up in everything and reacting to everything. And now I'm not saying I don't react, because I'm very human and sometimes I do, but very quickly, because the feeling isn't so nice. That tells me, I don't want to tangle with that one, and then you just come back. So when I talk about living in grace, that's what it looks like to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And
Okay.
you know how you talked about we all have that? That's beautiful, right? That's something that really attracted me to this. Because it wasn't so much around gathering more information, content, tools. It's like, no, you're not learning new techniques to handle life with. You're just learning what you're made of.
Mm-hmm.
And that was incredible to see, right? It reminded me of, when you said that, it really reminded me of what I could take back to my clients, because before that, my game was about tools and techniques. Oh, what better tools and techniques can I gather so my clients can have a better lifestyle, better relationships, better careers? And skills are important and intellect is important, but under that, the foundation of all of it, which this talks about, that's what I really love. And thank you for bringing us there, because you're right. We all have that. It's not that some do and some don't. It just opens up that freedom to play with.
Right. And when I'm with, we were talking about relationships a little bit earlier, and knowing that other people are the same as me inside, whether it's with my students or the parents I deal with, or my family or my friends, we all experience life through our thinking. And the level of consciousness or the level of awareness we have in the moment creates our experience. So when I see that, and I see the beauty of that spirit in front of me doing the same game of life that I'm doing, it really helps me feel connected to whoever I'm with. It could be, a professional association, in my schools, or simply with a friend. But there's that feeling of connection and non-judgment. and just feeling like, man, we're in this together, and you're seeing this now, okay, I'm seeing this, but it's all just a bunch of thoughts, right? So it really helps the relationships, because I don't take each thing as seriously in the moment. I see it's just a passing expression, and that we're in life together, expressing what we're seeing, and kind of feeling oneness with people in their situations. Just understanding it's just thinking that's creating it, and and direction comes from that. So rather than judging what someone's experiencing, it's just simply understanding. So understanding myself first is really, though, how I experience life, and then looking over at the person next to me, and it's like, oh, you too, and down the line, you too, we're all experiencing life through our thinking, and it's rather lovely to watch it. Feeling our connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a common thing, and relationships is something that I was wishing that we would get into. Because we have relationships with everyone in our lives, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're impacting each other. And the reason I wanted to get into it was because I have, in my own experience, if I look back to, my earlier years, my relationships have often, and I was going to say the whole time, but I just realized it's not true, because when I was a kid, life was great. I wasn't busy judging and analyzing everyone, right? But in I guess most of my adult life, if I could say, it was between analyzing and judging somebody, and then trying to react to how I can participate with the person. So it was a lot of work. It just, that was my world, and it didn't seem like there was any other way. So that's what I participated in. And versus what you just said, it's the judging versus understanding. And I find that I find it really important, because once I started to understand myself, as you say, that's kind of the direction we want to look to, automatically started understanding other people. And when I started to understand my thinking, I automatically started to understand other people's thinking. And the relationship became more connected, more loving, and less friction in it, whether it was with my family, my friends, complete strangers I've never met. It all just started to happen as if I can understand how my thinking works, I can have a relationship with my thinking. And that relationship is what I started looking at first as, like we talked about earlier, when you're not reacting to your thinking, you can free yourself up to be with the person in front of you. Versus what I was doing, right? Reacting to my thinking about the person, and then responding to my thinking about them, and creating this image. And so my relationship with everyone would be a different Shanann. With my friends, I'd be different. With my family, I'd be different. With this person at work, I'd be different. With that person at work, I'd be different. And this just came and took it all to the same level, which is of understanding, which is not of analyzing and judging. So I wanted to bring that up because it was so common in my life. The people that I've spoken to, very common in their lives as well. And what I've seen this understanding do in relationships is just bring people more closer, and have a richer experience of each other. Simply because they start looking at their thinking and their feelings.
Yeah, I love that. Can you talk a bit more about you're experiencing the shift in your feeling, what it was like before and after, like you're in your day-to-day. How did that change when
My
you
my
realize, once you realized, how did your quality of feeling in your life change?
quality of feeling. Well, yeah. So before this understanding, my understanding of feelings was extremely intellectual, and I had a different understanding of what anger was, what guilt was, what shame was, what fear was, what doubt was, insecurity, frustration. Like, there's this whole color of feelings. And to me, I was trying to understand each one. And because I thought each one was a reflection of some different circumstance or event, I would try to analyze each one.
Mm.
And then, that would obviously reflect in how I showed up in the world. Now, after understanding this, it kind of compressed it all and went, hey, Shanann, all feelings are thinking. It's not that anger comes from there and guilt comes from that one and frustrations from this one. It compressed it all and showed me that all your feelings are thinking. You don't need to go into it and sort them out. If you can understand that all feelings are from your thinking,
Mm.
I didn't need to put them on a pedestal anymore. I didn't need to give them the respect that I was giving them anymore. And so the quality of it changed from trying to analyze all the feelings that I just named to, and this was a complete byproduct, it wasn't something I focused on, to more pleasantness and more quietness and more, I was more delighted and more grateful.
Mm-hmm.
And this just started to show up, it wasn't something that I was aiming for at all.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back at it, it's showing me that those are the default states. Those are the natural states. These were the analyzed ones. And when I stopped trying to sort it out, I was back in the default zone.
Mm-hmm. I love how the feeling as you spoke just shifted. When you were talking about the earlier expressions, and then thinking back into who you really are. And in relation to talking about relationships, you just imagine what you bring to a relationship when you're feeling that peace and that calm and that quiet, and your ability to really listen and really hear the person that's next to you. Like, what a difference. That's such a game changer in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
When you just know that that's there to fall into, that's our natural state. That's what we were born with, and just for our misunderstanding that we get caught up in everything else and get engaged in things that take us away. But how lovely that we know we have that to come back to. Like, that's our home. That's coming home, when I don't get engaged in all the thinking and things that take me away from there. So it's lovely how simple it is, how knowing it's there, letting go, like knowing that we can let go. It's okay to let go when it's not taking us where we want to be, and letting the answers come, because they do. You can't always predict how it will look. It's not always what you expect, but something always comes that takes us to the next learning, that the next thing to see. Being involved in this for most of my life now, I think, well, sometimes when these situations come up, I think, is there no end to this? Give me a break. And then no, but because it's more coming home to myself in an even deeper way, that life presents challenges, life presents learning, and always a chance for more beauty and knowing our true selves even more. And I'm so, so grateful for that. I'm extremely grateful for that. Has been a lifesaver for me, knowing that that place is inside, that it will always be there, no matter what challenges, no matter what faces us. We have that safety inside us. I never knew that it was there to look for before. I never knew it was, I always, like we said earlier, when we were all looking out there, but what a beautiful thing, to know that's our true identity. That's who we really are, is that wise, knowing entity, that's our true nature. Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow is right.
Yeah.
Wow is right. Yeah, and we don't get taught this, right? Like we're not taught this growing up, so we get all caught up into trying to solve everything that feels a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm really grateful for this too. It comes out and shows you.
Yeah.
Just
and I love how life shows us. It's really only common sense. Like when you see it, then it really is just true common sense. And I recognize it everywhere around me, in the beautiful people I work with that have never heard of three principles, and someone, who laughs easily, or someone, who's kind-hearted. It just comes through in a natural way. It's like, it's who we really are. Our true natural selves are these three principles in action, coming from a lovely feeling place, because we all respond to it. It's like we're all flowers turning to the sun when, there's that loving feeling, people respond to that, and whatever it looks like, however we bring it out in our lives. But it's the most natural way to be, and lovely to come back to that always.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if people have comments or questions. I feel like I'm actually talking a lot.
No, I was thinking the same thing. We have about 15 minutes to the top of the hour. Yeah, I was literally going through my mind when you said it. So let me just open it up. If anybody has any questions, comments, insights, or you just want to share something, then feel free to unmute yourself. You should be able to do it and jump in.
And if you're not sure how to unmute yourself, just put your hand up and Shanann can unmute you for you.
Yeah, if you don't know how to do that, if you go to the participants tab, it will give you the options.
The bottom left?
Or if you just do this, I'll see you and then I'll unmute it.
I like the idea of when you're faced with a situation and not wanting to give it any more power, to step back and do nothing instead of feeding it all the time. Because I think the more that you think about it, the more you give that power to it, and then it's just going to constantly grow like a snowball rolling down a hill. If you're feeding it all the time, then it's occupying that space in your mind. So if you just step back and look at from like an objective perspective, like looking in on yourself, then you can kind of take that power back.
Yeah.
So I like that idea.
I do too. And like that's your wisdom telling you that, because it's familiar, like it rings true to you, because it's your wisdom saying, yep, that sits right. And that's what I love to see. Thank you for sharing that, absolutely. I love seeing it come, because everybody's got it, and it hits us in different ways. We recognize little truths because it's us. It's who we really are. And sometimes we have just forgotten these things, right? Because we get caught up and we're human, but lovely to remind ourselves and each other, and just knowing it's there. So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Jolene. Anybody else want to jump in?
it's Nina here.
Hi,
Nina.
Nina.
I really want to thank you both. I didn't think I was going to have time to come onto this because I have some stuff going on at work, and it was perfect because it reminded me of the simplicity of all this. And you know, there's so much 3P stuff available out there right now. Sometimes I get overwhelmed with everyone's take on it and the implications. And it really is so simple. And so I really appreciate how you both presented today. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Yes, you know, it really is so simple. And I was just talking with my husband this morning, and, you know, sometimes I say I have a hard time articulating it because it just comes down to the feeling for me. And listening to that rich inner feeling, that guides me, and it tells me if it's off, then I feel off and I know not to engage. And if I'm feeling warm and loving about something or inspired about something in a very gentle, rich way, then that guides me. And that's really what I learned from knowing Sid, is watching him live life and, you know, doing things together. It was just living in that nice feeling and enjoying my housework and, you know, like mowing my lawn and planting my flowers and little things that I do. It's just the simple enjoyment of living in a nice feeling is what we all, I think, want in our lives, regardless of what we're doing. So it's that boiling it down to the simplicity. And thank you for bringing that up, Nina, because that's all it is, right? It's not all about the wonderful explanations. I know I'm very impressed sometimes by the clever people and in the 3P community and their amazing descriptions. And but really, it's just coming down to living our everyday life as simply and happily, knowing where our experience comes from and enjoying ourselves, right? Enjoying our families and our friends and whatever we do every day. That's what it's about to me. That's what I learned from Sid, you know, because he would talk so little about this. You know, occasionally something would come to him and he would, you know, write something down or, you know, want to share something. But it was really just learning how to live a simple, happy life and appreciating, being grateful just for life, not for any particular thing, but just living life in a beautiful feeling. Like, what more could we want? Thank you, Nina. Good reminder.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that I like how you guys were talking about how, what was your change in feelings from when you knew this or didn't know this, and then when you had the understanding. And going way back as an intensive care nurse, I would be the first one to say, I'm not stressed. And yet I was very stressed. And so sometimes we're not even aware of the fact of where we're at. And one of the things I first started learning when I saw this was that there were feelings on another level that I hadn't seen and weren't even considering. I loved when they were talking about things like playfulness and being content and just things that to me were not part of my typical vocabulary. So my feelings, when I started recognizing that, yeah, I was stressed, and I saw how all that started melting away, as you say, when you're understanding, things started, like common sense would tell you, like, you don't have to engage in everybody else's little, you know, upset, or you don't have to worry. How does that help? You know, it's like I started seeing how all these things were dropping away, not because I thought a technique, I should do this. So what I saw was the feeling levels change to much deeper and richer, you know, and it continues throughout, like you say, life. And we're all going through stuff at times, but the richness of the feelings, I just am excited for everyone waking up to seeing how simple, how easy. I mean, I love how simple you guys explain it. I think it's a beautiful way of sharing with people.
Oh, thank you.
Exciting to see, and I I think this next weekend that you have is going to be fabulous to be able to share more for people.
Thank you so much.
What you're
You're
doing.
reminding me, Karen, you know what, when I first felt that shift in feeling, that recognizing that something was true inside me, I didn't really understand much. I really, really didn't. But it was just that, that nice recognition. And then it was, I just went and lived my life. I didn't know enough to think a whole lot about it, or I wasn't watching everything I was doing or everything I was thinking. I was just living my life with a nicer feeling. And then in hindsight, I would notice, hey, those things that used to upset me aren't happening anymore. Or I don't find myself getting involved in this kind of stuff either. Life just on its own started becoming simple. It was like going on automatic a little bit. Right? It's a natural shift when you want to live in a nicer feeling, and you put that first without knowing all the details of how you get there, but just having that loving intention for yourself to nurture your own spirit, and it just starts happening. The outside stuff falls into place. So you described that really beautifully, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you. Just reminded me, right? Because it happens without knowing, right? You look back and you go, oh.
Even as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the same thing happened with perspective. Remember Tim the Handyman? Remember that TV show? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, he would have to get up on a ladder to be able to see his neighbor. Otherwise, he would not have known. Is he having a barbecue or is there a fire next door? I mean, so as you start, I always say we lighten up. We go up higher, and then you're able to see better what's happening around you. So it changes everything. Like you say, it's the feeling that starts it all. And then everything else just changes. When you start seeing things differently.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you next weekend as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are you thinking? I feel it's been rich. I've been touched by all of you. And is there anything more you want to say, Shanann, or anyone else? Or any questions?
I'm actually thinking less now. So I'm in a good space. And
beautiful.
we're coming up at the top of the hour. So maybe this is a good time to stop and, continue with our day.
Okay, well, thank you, all of you, for contributing and just being part of our discussion here. And I just feel your presence, and I thank you. Thank you very much. And,
yes, thank you for everyone that joined us here. And thank you to everyone that's listening as well. Just give me one moment and stay on the line. I'm just going to stop the recording.